Hello and welcome to this edition of Prophecy in the News. I'm your host, Kevin Clarkson. I want to thank you for joining us. This is a special time we have with Terry James, and Terry is an author of 27 books because that flows out of his study and love for prophecy. And he shared with me that, one of his favorite verses in Revelation 19, where John is told by an angel that the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. And Terry, I want to welcome you today. We appreciate you and your ministry.
So nice to be back with you, Kevin.
Well, we enjoy your books. We also appreciate the website that you are behind, raptureready.com. And that is, as you said, the most visited, trafficked website on prophecy on the entire internet.
Yes, the founder, Todd Strandberg, has done a wonderful job with that, and God's blessed his efforts and our outreach, and we just, again, are so grateful and thankful to him for it.
Well, I commend that to our viewers because I look at it regularly. I mean, there's not usually daily, but I won't miss a day or two without checking the news updates and then the articles that you put out. It's got great content.
Good.
Well, you're on top of this stuff, and you interact with it on a regular basis because of that website, and now you've put out a book just within the last 2 months called Rapture Ready or Not. And we were visiting in an earlier program about the inspiration for this book coming from really the sense that the Lord gave you as you just sense we're in this final day, that it's a declaration, not an iffy thing. You believe, as chapter 1 says, the end isn't near, it's here.
That is correct. I believe God has shown me that in my deepest part of my spirit, and I don't believe it is far distant at all before we will hear that call. Christians will hear that call, come up hither, Revelation 4:1, and so I think this is not a time of gloom and doom for the Christian. It's a time to look forward to Christ's coming. But at the same time, we're accused of being so heavenly minded we're of no earthly good, as that old trite saying goes.
Mm-hmm.
But we are to be working, and those who believe in the pre-tribute rapture, let me tell you, most people who really get that concept in their head and that truth in their head, we are wanting to work, to do God's work, to carry out the Great Commission while we're here, not just sit back and twiddle our thumbs.
That's right.
Wait for some great escape. We're looking to work to get people into the kingdom.
Amen.
So they don't have to face what's coming. And so in that sense, I think that we are to keep looking up, and we are to do what God has put us here to do, and we want to hear Him say, "Well done, good and faithful servant."
Well, there's no doubt there's a lot of scoffing today in these last days, as Peter said would come, and that really is just another sign, isn't it, that we are near the end.
Amen.
Well, you also have followed up a chapter called UFO Sightings and Other Strange Stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And tell us a little bit about what's going on there.
Well, I believe that's part of the preparation for 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, in which it says that before the Antichrist won't appear until the church is first taken in the rapture, but there's coming after the rapture a time of God says He Himself will send strong delusion to people that they should believe the lie. Those that haven't believed in Christ for salvation before the rapture, when they're left behind after the rapture, I don't know. It's God's purview, totally not mine. But He says it in His Word that there's going to be strong delusion for those who have not accepted Christ at that time. And I believe we're seeing right now with this UFO stuff and all these strange things happening, a satanic preparation for that strong delusion. As a matter of fact, with what's going on, particularly in American politics today, just to mention one, and other things, I think we already see that delusion setting in. It's unbelievable how people can fall for some and are so gullible about some of the things that's going on. Well, there's coming a time of great delusion, and God is going to allow it to happen because people have rejected Christ. Once the church is gone to heaven, once He calls, and it says, "Come up here." And one of the things I mentioning the UFOs, we have been prepared, we have been conditioned in America here, particularly about UFOs. I think beginning with the time that a former Air Force colonel flying, saw he called looked like flying saucers skipping across water,
Mm-hmm.
and way back in early 1947. That was followed up by the Roswell incident in Roswell, New Mexico, when supposedly some aliens crashed and all these sort of things. From all of that has come this UFO, these interdimensional, I mean, these beings from other star systems, these extraterrestrials coming to Earth to keep check on man. Well, we had a 1952 incident that I report in the book about Washington D.C. They were seen all over the sky, night skies of Washington D.C. These discs were hovering, they were flying back and forth, and many people say that that's the first time that extraterrestrials made contact with the President of the United States. I believe it was probably Truman's last time as president, or Eisenhower's first. I don't know which president it was,
Mm-hmm.
but that was part of it. And then we had that and since then, the entertainment industry has gone wild with this, of course.
Of course.
1952 with The Day the Earth Stood Still really began it. Then you had, of course, before that, 1938, you had the radio program with um,
Orson Welles.
Orson Welles H.G. Wells wrote it, but Orson Welles did the radio program, and convinced people in New Jersey at least that they were being invaded by Martians. Well, from that, of course, we've had Independence Day, we've had E.T., we've had just all of these films. They're very popular. They just get into people's minds. I believe it's satanic delusion for when the rapture occurred, and there's going to be a special announcement about what has happened. Ultimately, I think there's going to be an explanation by the powers that be at that time about what's happening, and I believe it's going to be part of you've heard so much about some of this New Age stuff that coming the Age of Aquarius and all of that, and I believe that that's going to be part of the explanation.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that UFOs are going to look like they're landing. There's going to be deception, and here's why I base that on Scripture. This is not just wild-eye Terry James fanaticism. This is based upon what I believe Scripture tells us. Excuse me. In chapter 12, it says that Satan and his minions will finally, fallen angels, will finally be kicked out of heaven for the final time. They will no longer have access to heaven. And they will come to earth, and Satan will come knowing he has a short time, and his fury will, of course, be at the apex. He will go about totally trying to destroy all human life and everything else. He will do his utmost. And so that's Revelation chapter 12. Well, it says in the next chapter, Revelation chapter 13, it talks about this false prophet, this second beast, the first beast being the Antichrist, the political leader that comes up out of the sea of peoples. It says John said that Satan looked out on the sea, and he saw this beast rising out of the sea, and so forth, and then there was a beast as a part of that nondescript beast, that conglomerate of all the world empires, and he was called the first beast. The second beast will come out of the land. So the first beast is a political beast. The second beast will come out of the land. Many people thinks that means that he will be, the false prophet will be a Jew. I'm not so sure I totally believe that, but at least he will be and some people think he'll be the Catholic Pope, another thing. But there will be a second beast. Well, he will cause eventually the Antichrist character, the political leader, will suffer a deadly head wound, the Bible tells us, and he will miraculously appear to revive. Of course, we know it's a false resurrection. Only Christ has a power of life and death. And I think it will be a false resurrection from supposedly a deadly wound. And all the peoples of the world will follow after the beast. This is part of the great delusion, I think, that will be sent. People will fall for this. Now, this is probably 3.5 years into the tribulation era, the last 7 years of the tribulation, the Great Tribulation, as Jesus called it, I believe, from about the midway point, something like that. And this second beast, this false prophet, will build an image to the beast. He will construct an image. Now, I don't know what that means, whether it's a holograph, whether it's something like Nebuchadnezzar saw in his vision, that Daniel told him about and explained, or if it'll be what it will be, but it will be some kind of an image once this leader resurrects. And it says that this false prophet, the second beast, in the sight of the first beast, the image of the first beast, will cause fire to come down from heaven. I personally believe that's going to be part of the really strong delusion that people are going to believe. These are going to be, I believe, this false prophet is going to say something like, these things, these lights you see descending from heaven. I remember chapter 12, it says that Satan and his minions are cast out of heaven for the final time.
Mm-hmm.
Here they come down to earth. I think they're going to appear to be as light orbs or something, and he's going to say something like, these are the ascended masters, the brothers who have come to save the planet and to with our great leader here make all things right. And so that's what I mean by UFOs and other strange stuff. The whole UFO thing, I think, is part of this budding delusion that's coming, and I think we're going to see more and more, not only of UFOs, but many other strange things, which I go into some detail in this chapter.
Demonic manifestations is what a Christian is to see this as. It's what it is. All right. Well, you obviously have another chapter, Planet Earth Needs to Shrink, and it'll be about the great fear that will, men's hearts failing them for fear and distress of nations. Is that what I understand?
That, and I think, again, we see all of that setting up now. Jesus, in his Olivet Discourse, in his prophecies, he talked mostly about what things would happen during the tribulation era itself. But he also said in Luke, as recorded in Luke 21:28, when you see all these things begin to come to pass, look up and lift up your head, for your redemption draweth near. So we know that the things will already have begun to appear well before the time of the tribulation began. So as part of that, I think that one thing that we see right now developing in a really big way, take just the economic stresses that we've seen over this since even before 2008, but the supposed collapse with the economic problems, they have literally thrown trillions of dollars, even since 1964, when Lyndon Johnson started the War on Poverty and the Great Society program and all that. Perhaps in in theory a very noble thing, which I don't know how noble any of our progressive type mindset can be, but I believe a lot of people thought that was really going to end poverty and so forth. Well, they've thrown over $22 trillion. Now that's trillion.
I know.
That's unimaginable at this problem, and it's worse now than it ever has been. We have more people on the welfare rolls than we've ever had. It's a growing thing, and it is totally destroying the nation. We're printing money out of nothing, with nothing to back it. We did away with the gold standard back in 1972 or one or something like that, with Nixon administration. And since that time, and what all this has created, we're just talking about the economic situation, created a great perplexity, great consternation. Jesus said that nations will be in distress with perplexity. In other words, the perplexity part is they don't know what to do about it. They try to act like they do. Vote for us and we will do it. But we've had somebody in there said he was going to do it, and he's been in there for 8 years. He hadn't done it, and the perplexity has grown on not only in the United States but on a global scale. So that's what I talk about: perplexity, nations in distress with perplexity, and it has caused a lot of heart failure.
Yeah, and I would make the case that it's that angst that fuels a lot of the talk radio and cable news that a lot of us in our audience are probably tuned into. But we need to be careful as we pray for our nation that we don't get sucked into the spirit of despair. Because as Jesus said, lift up your heads, your redemption draws nigh.
And he hadn't given us spirit of fear, but a
right.
strong mind and so forth.
Love and power. That's right.
Power, yeah.
Well, our guest is Terry James, and we are talking about his newest book. It's just released, Rapture, Ready or Not. And it's 15 Reasons Why This is the generation that will be left behind. We're making this book available to you as our viewers. If you want to call in, the 800 number on your screen, or go to our website, prophecyinthenews.com. You can access our bookstore for a cost of $14.95 plus shipping and handling. This is an intriguing new book. It's really on the cutting edge because the author helps manage a website that has constant daily updates of prophetic news from around the globe. And I believe you will find this easy to read, easy to pass on to someone that is maybe getting their first taste of prophetic warnings and teaching. It's very balanced and it's very biblical, and it's a great joy to have Terry James with us today. Well, your next chapter, and I don't know that we can cover all of these, but you mentioned the angst and the fact that we've elected for hope and change and voted for that, but 8 years not so. The next chapter is Big Brother for a not so brave new world. That feeds right into that, doesn't it?
Of course, Big Brother, that was George Orwell's 1984, the book 1984, that most people who, in college particularly, have had to read, the classics. And one of them was 1984 by George Orwell. The other was by Aldous Huxley and Brave New World. They were done back in the, I would say, in the 1940s, particularly 1940. I forget when Huxley's was, a little bit earlier than Orwell, but they're dystopian novels. In other words, they're novels about a very dark and bleak and boding time, and so I think that that's what's being prepared right now, and people don't realize it, of course, but we're headed in that direction, and particularly I like to point out here the electronic bondage that is beginning to develop. And not only electronic bondage, but our own government has gotten away from constitutional adherence to constitutional principles, and they have started. They allowed more presidential executive orders being put into the mix than you can imagine, and I outlined them and talk about them. All these presidential orders. There's one in particular that covers everything. President has complete. Now, this is not just fantasy or some red eye hour new talk show talking about this. This is not conspiracy. This is truth. There's one executive order that covers all of it, and it totally locks down Americans. It can even intern them and put them into a situation where they will have to work for the government, doing kind of jobs that the government wants them to do. This would be under, of course, the most bleak circumstance, like a national crisis beyond all crisis. And we know we've had somebody in the presidential administration, Rahm Emanuel, who is now mayor of Chicago, that says, should never let a good crisis go to waste. And so we wonder how many politicians in this world, both the United States and worldwide, are looking for that special crisis when many of these dystopian type things can be put into play and lock down a public. Well, there's coming a time, the Bible tells us about it. There's coming such a man. He's talked all about in Revelation chapter 13, and Daniel talks about him in chapters 7, 8, 11, and so forth. Excuse me. And so that time is coming, and so we must at least be aware of it. I think the crisis is going to do it, and I pointed out in Rapture Ready or Not, I believe with all my heart that God has shown me in my spirit that that crisis is not going to be man-made. It's not going to be a George Soros that's going to do it. It's not going to be an Obama. It's not going to be a Donald Trump or a Hillary Clinton or anybody else that's going to do it, that bring this crisis about. It's going to be God himself. I believe Jesus is about to intervene, and that's going to be a crisis of unprecedented magnitude in this world. God doesn't mean it that way, but he's going to let mankind have the kind of world they want as he withdraws the Holy Spirit as restrainer. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 tells us the church goes, and there's no more buffeting agent here on the consciences of man. And so that's what this chapter is all about. Excuse me.
Very, very scary. totalitarian government and total dictatorship. And of course, as you say, that is forecast in the Bible to be in the end time.
And
Well,
that's even more reason to be ready, you know.
it is. Oh, it really is. Well, I've got to ask you about chapter 5. There is such an appetite today in entertainment and among this millennial generation for the supernatural. And you have a chapter titled Vampires, Zombies, Transhumans, and Other Fiends.
Well, I was hoping that one might attract them because, you know, zombie apocalypse and all these other things is quite entertaining to this current generation, I think, and they like it. Even I can remember, Kevin, when I was a kid, and you're considerably younger than I am, but when I was a kid, even back then, you know, Frankenstein, you know, I thought if I could go see a Frankenstein movie, which Mother rarely let me do, anything like that, but I thought that was just great. Werewolf, Dracula, all of those things. And that comes from Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, written back in 1800, and Bram Stoker's Dracula and all that's where it started. But Satan is using this. You know, Genesis chapter 6, Jesus first of all says it's going to be just like it was in the days of Noah. There'll be violence on the earth. It's going to fill the whole earth. And their minds were what? Only on evil continually. Okay. That's what this generation has become. I'm talking about, not talking about just you millennials. I mean, you know, this whole decades-long thing, going back to my time, and yeah, it's become an entertainment fad to embrace the thought of evil. And I go through this chapter and I try to dissect all of the different kinds of things that have happened that shows that this is a generation, this is a time like Jesus was talking about, like the days of Noah, when the minds of men, hearts of men are only on evil continually. And certainly I think this is just one more part of the total mix of why that shows where we are exactly on God's prophetic timeline.
I agree, and you didn't use this phrase or word yet, but I think this is all, again, some of the doorway to the demonic. And, you know, the thing that I worry about, or I should say I'm concerned about, I see what little of it I have seen, all the splatter and gore, wiping out zombies. It just seems to desensitize the human spirit. And when you see these ghoulish-looking figures made up to look half human and half fiend, and they're just blown away, I just can see that violence actually inserting itself into people's lives and personalities, carried over toward, you know, regular human beings. And
absolutely, and you know, the millennial generation in particular, and unfortunately I have children myself when they were growing up, and you know, I haven't been the perfect father, like more like my dad was, and like I should have been. But all these violent games with all of this, you know, this military hardware that just literally, like you say, blood splatters everywhere. And you know, I know that's entertaining especially to the young men, but it's a very, I think, a satanic, Luciferian, direct intervention into our entertainment industry and so forth. I think it's done on purpose.
I do too.
And it does open up, I think, other dimensions, and that and so many other things we could mention. We probably sit here all day and just talk on this topic.
Yeah, we could. We really could. The highway to hell and the doorway to demons is very real.
Absolutely. Amen. Yeah.
Well, my brother, we've got about 3 minutes left, and we're not even a third of the way through this great book. Let me just pick maybe one more thing that kind of intrigues in these titles, and they all look good. Let's just finish talking about a really strong cocktail called Israel. Maybe we can spend a minute or two on that.
Well, there again, you know, we talked about a little, at the last program, I think we talked some about Israel. Israel, of course, I think is the number one sign of where we are in God's prophetic timeline, that Jesus is about to intervene as he promised in Matthew 24, verses 36 through 42. Just like in the days of Noah and days of Lot. And Israel is that number one signal of where we are at that time, I think, in human history. And the fact that they're trying to force peace on Israel, this roadmap to peace thing that's been in play for a long time, And that is what's going to bring all mankind to Armageddon, according to God in Joel chapter 3, verse 2. Because they've divided the land, and that's part of this peace. You know, they're wanting Israel to give Palestinian a part of their land. Now, here's a tiny sliver.
Exactly.
But what does Satan want? He wants that one touchstone city to the world that God has chosen for himself, Jerusalem.
Amen.
Zechariah the prophet in chapter 12, verses 1 through 3 says that it will become a cup of trembling and a burden of stone to the whole world, and all nations that try to lift it or try to move it or try to be involved with it will be cut into pieces.
Hurt themselves.
And that's what's going to bring all mankind to Armageddon. Any time that the cameras turn away from Israel to something else, whether it's transgenders, transsexual, homosexual activity, or anything else, any other subject, where the society and culture is being debauched or whatever, no matter what the problem, we talked about perplexity of nations and so forth, and no matter where the cameras turn, they always turn right back there to Jerusalem eventually.
Indeed. And
to this Palestinian situation, because even evangelical Christians, they really bothers me, are saying, that Israel is too hard-hearted. They should give up their land for peace. That's not what God says.
That's not what God says.
He doesn't say that at all. He says just the opposite. He says, you better not touch Israel. It's the apple of my eye. Jerusalem's the apple of my eye.
Amen.
If you poke me there, you're in trouble.
Big trouble.
And so that's what's happening. And you're going to see it every time cameras turn away. They'll be right there back there eventually. And I think we're going to really see this ratchet up in the coming days.
Well, amen. Well, our time is gone. Terry James, it's been wonderful to have you and talk about your new book, Rapture Ready or Not. We want to urge you to call on the name of the Lord and trust Him if you haven't. If you have, let's keep looking up. I want to tell you about our new updated website. It's never been easier to connect with prophecyinthenews.com. Same address, a new face. You can access all of our television programs, our latest updates, current prophetic news that is put up daily related to what the Bible says, also our online bookstore, and we're offering a special premium membership for $24.95. You can become a premium member for a year, and if within the continental United States, free shipping. We also let you know what a bargain that is, and you'll be receiving special emails and special offers as a premium member. We will also have previews of our upcoming magazine articles. We will have current news of interest to you. We'll have an archive of much of our past and our history. So we want you to find it at prophecyinthenews.com. Join us and let us know you're there. Thank you for watching Prophecy in the News.